CarolinaPrepper.com. If you're looking for quality food storage for hiking, fishing, hunting, basic survival needs, or just for everyday use, check out our food storage line at CarolinaPrepper.com. We also carry other fine quality products, such as our can-can concealment holsters for men and women. Keeping your firearm under cover and within reach puts confidence in your hands in any situation. Our products are 100% American-made. Check us out today at CarolinaPrepper.com.
And now, it's time to Stand for Truth with the host of Stand for Truth Radio, Susan Knowles.
And welcome to the program, everyone. I'm your host, Susan Knowles. So glad you could join us today. Please check out my website at SusanKnowles.com, and don't forget to follow Stand for Truth Radio with a variety of shows that I do, such as Knowles on the News and God's Views on political news with my co-host, Bill Cloud. To hear all the podcasts, just go to Spreaker.com or download the Spreaker phone app and type in Stand for Truth Radio with Susan Knowles. All the shows can also be heard on iHeartRadio, and the easiest way to find that is just go to SusanKnowles.com, click on the big iHeartRadio logo. It will take you right there. And finally, follow me on Twitter at Susan Knowles. Now, my guest today is Katy Grimes. Katy co-authored the book California's War Against Donald Trump, Who Wins, Who Loses. Katy Grimes is a longtime political journalist, analyst, and writer. As senior correspondent for the Flash Report, Katy covers the California Legislature and state agency politics from the state capitol. Katy has worked as an investigative journalist, political columnist, and news reporter for the Sacramento Union, the Pacific Research Institute's CalWatchdog Journalism Center, and the Flash Report. Katy currently writes for the Flash Report, Canada Free Press, Legal Insurrection, and Reagan Baby. She's also been published in the Orange County Register, the Flash Report, Cal News, California Political News and Views, Fox and Hounds, Human Events, and Watchdog.org. She was a regular columnist for the Sacramento Union and has written for the Washington Examiner, the San Francisco Examiner, the Sacramento Bee, Fox News, and the Business Journal. Katy's also been an influential political blogger since 2004 and can be heard on many talk radio shows throughout California, and she often fills in as a talk radio host for Sacramento radio shows. She's a California native and lives in Sacramento with her husband, Terry, and her son is a U.S. Naval Academy graduate, now a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. So let's welcome to the program, Katy Grimes. Hey, Katy.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here today. I read your book, and I loved it. And, you know, because I live in California, I know that you and your co-author, James Lacey, are spot on about what's happening in California.
Yes. Sadly, we are.
I know.
Yeah, there's not a lot of good news in the book, but we wanted to really make an analysis of not only what's happening in California in general, but what has been happening since Donald Trump was elected.
Well, and I wanted to start there. You know, often I hear people say, why should I care about what's happening in California? California, it's not where I live. I don't really care. Everything's crazy there. Tell us why we should care about California and what's happening there.
Well, our politicians in California love to brag that California is the sixth largest economy in the world, or the seventh, or whatever we are right now. And so that obviously has an influence on the rest of the country. But California also has 1/3 of the nation's welfare recipients. That's a problem. And what happens in California is often contagious in parts of the rest of the country, particularly the other blue states. Right now we're suffering with these California wildfires, but they tend to spread across the country as well, with our state's bad ideas. And I think that's why we want to address what's happening, this political grandstanding that's taking place in California, frankly, to the detriment of California's citizens.
Well, and also, Katie, and I think you probably would agree with this, not only do we have what's happening in California and why it's important to the rest of the nation, because what starts here usually goes to the rest of the nation, but look at people like Dianne Feinstein. She's from California, and other people, Kamala Harris, are from California, and yet they're senators, that have an impact across the entire nation. So these people that are in the politics here are going to be coming to a neighborhood near you and having an influence on it, whether you like it or not, possibly.
Sadly, and that is the case. I mean, I hear all the time, too, people in Oregon or Nevada or Arizona, Texas even, where a lot of Californians have moved. They claim that Californians are bringing their crazy ideas with them. On one hand, I understand that, but on the other, the people who would leave California for a low-tax, freer, liberty-loving state are not going to be the kind who are promoting California ideas on that state, and I would blame that state's politicians.
Yeah, I can see Silicon Valley people moving someplace and bringing their ideas, but for the rest of the people, I don't really see that. I agree with you on that.
Exactly.
Now, Hillary Clinton won California, and that was really no surprise. But why do you think, why is California so disconnected with the rest of the United States that really were for President Trump?
Well, it is certainly no surprise or secret that California has a gigantic illegal immigration problem in this state. Our politicians just passed, and Governor Jerry Brown signed into law the bill authorizing California to become a sanctuary state in direct violation of federal law. But this has an influence on our elections. We know that there is a gigantic problem in California, and I've written extensively about voter fraud and election fraud. And frankly, some of it is being perpetrated right through the Secretary of State's office with the assistance of the California DMV through the motor voter program. But it's very interesting that, yes, we knew Hillary Clinton would win the election in California, no surprise, but there were still 4.5 million California voters who did vote for Donald Trump. And I don't think that can be ignored.
No, I don't think so either. And for those who don't understand what that is about the voter issue in California with illegal immigrants in the DMV, could you just quickly explain that for them?
Sure. California the legislature passed a few years ago, Assembly Bill 60, called the Motor Voter Law. Jerry Brown signed it into law. And ostensibly, this motor voter law was supposed to bring the illegal aliens out of the shadows, allow them to get a driver's license, which was supposed to have a very clear demarcation that they were not legal citizens, but it was supposed to, again, bring them out of the shadows and allow them to get insurance, etc. Bullpucky. Yeah. What that bill also had written in is that these people would be automatically registered to vote, and that was the real purpose behind it. The bill initially called for the Department of Motor Vehicles to maintain a separate database of these illegal aliens who were receiving driver's licenses, and that database was supposed to be provided to the Secretary of State's office so that should anyone accidentally get registered to vote, the Secretary of State's office could kibosh it. But guess what? The DMV has kept that database under lock and key, and many, many, many of these illegal aliens are voting, and sometimes more than once.
Yeah, and you can vote by mailing in your ballot. So it's so easy. You don't even have to go to the polls. And a lot of people don't realize that in California, you don't need to show ID. You just go in and say, hey, I'm, Joe Smith, and here's your ballot, have fun. And that's it. And I don't know about you, Katie.
It's ridiculous.
It is. And this time, I was telling people earlier that I've always voted in the same place. It's a large school. You go in there and you vote. It's been that way for years. And this time, it was hard to find where I was voting. I was voting in a garage. I was given the wrong ballot several times. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist on that, but something was going on with the voting this past election, in my opinion.
You are absolutely right, and there's no coincidence that former State Senator Alex Padilla, a Democrat from Los Angeles, is now the Secretary of State. Yes, there was a concerted effort, and it was discovered through a lot of research pointing right back to the Secretary of State's office that orchestrated all these changes in the June 2016 primary as well as the November 2016 president, the full election.
Right.
On primary night in June 2016, I cannot tell you, my phone was on fire, my email was on fire. People were contacting me from all over the state telling me they had been longtime registered Republicans, even some registered Democrats and independents showed up at their standard polling place only to be told by the poll workers that, no, you're not a registered Republican. And even though they'd show them their Republican Party card or their Democrat Party sample ballot, they were told, no, you are just a decline to decline to state, which
right.
is the I'm forgetting what it is nationally, but anyway, and they were given a provisional ballot, and that was the whole point. And then the provisional ballots were mostly thrown out.
Right. And it's a huge problem. And again, it's one of those things where if it's going on in California, it's going on in other Democrat states as well. And it's kind of amusing to find out now that they're saying, oh, we've got to do something about the voter machines and we've got to make sure this time that everything's right. And I'm thinking, if they do that, I think they're going to lose votes because, like I said, to me, obviously there was something going on that wasn't right.
You're absolutely right. And see, this was all done through the HAVA Act, Help America Vote Act, that was passed right after the George Bush Al Gore election to force states to put their voting system on a computer system so that, everybody was doing things the same way. The problem was in this last election, Alex Padilla, our Secretary of State, certainly did get it online, but his office, frankly, used it to manipulate these voting stations all around the state.
Oh, my gosh.
So you weren't imagining things.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I've been here long enough in California to know.
Yeah.
Now, Katy, in your book, California's War Against Donald Trump, Who Wins, Who Loses, there are many players in California who, that we're just talking about some that have a total battle against this president. And I want to talk about those individuals. And I want to start with Governor Jerry Brown, who is at odds with President Trump in so many areas. Let's talk about his views on climate change.
Oh, good Lord. I have written so many columns about Governor Jerry Brown, fiddling with climate change while the rest of the state burns. And up until the wildfires recently, the state, is kind of a metaphor for what was happening in our state economy, our, land use issues. I mean, the list is so long of things that Jerry Brown has screwed up. But yes, he's blaming everything on climate change and focusing entirely on that so that he doesn't have to govern the state, which is what he was elected to do. I point out in the book that he comes from this deeply political family, and his father, Edmund G. Pat Brown, actually is largely responsible for building out a lot of the state's infrastructure. You contrast that with what his son Jerry has done. Jerry put a halt to continuing projects that were even partway done, such as Interstate 5 in California, and put an end to building more reservoirs, which we desperately need water storage. He put an end to an awful lot of the important building that was happening in the state. And I swear he was reelected in 2010 to come back and finish us off.
I know. I believe that too. And it's interesting because even though President Trump has withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accord, Jerry Brown is 100% for it and wants to continue doing that in California.
Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Frankly, what happened right after Donald Trump was elected is our California legislature, the Democrats completely dominate it, and Governor Brown essentially vowed a war with Donald Trump, and they also vowed to adopt every policy Donald Trump overturned, such as the EPA regulations that Trump is wonderfully overturning, and that is a boost for the poor businesses that have been suffering under these ridiculous things. And I mean, going so far, Susan, that California politicians have vowed to adopt a death tax and a state tax when the tax reform is passed in Washington. That shows you their grandstanding, but it's to the detriment of us, the people here who are the taxpayers supporting the state.
Well, and when it comes to health care, whatever they do, whatever Donald Trump comes up with, and even with you can buy insurance across state lines. I'm surprised what's been happening with that as far as California is concerned. Have they said anything yet?
I haven't heard a word, and I'm intrigued because, I, like millions of Californians, am stuck in some god-awful health plan that I pay a boatload of money for. And I've been praying, and I'm a former human resource director. I bought insurance for 20 years for a large manufacturing firm, and we were headed the direction of health savings accounts and allowing you to fund your basic well care out of pocket and only have to, check into like a reinsurance carrier for something catastrophic or very expensive. And obviously Obamacare put an end to that. Allowing us to buy across state lines would, frankly, just be incredible and hopefully set the insurance companies, back into the free market. But it's interesting that California politicians have been a little bit silent about it, other than, once again, political grandstanding. Javier Becerra, the California Attorney General, has an op-ed today in the Sacramento Bee claiming that this is just going to throw 800,000 people out on the streets without insurance, without any facts to back it up.
Well, and it's funny he'd use 800,000 because isn't that the number of DACA people that they think are here in the state? In the United States. And so it's funny he would use that number. I mean, it's insane. And California really wants a one-payer system, and they tried to do that. I mean, they've talked about that, and they want the federal. They thought, well, we can't really make this happen because President Trump is never going to give us the federal monies, and take it away from us. But they're doing everything, like you said, they're doing everything they possibly can to do whatever Trump says. They'll do the opposite.
Yes, exactly. And that is the contrast. That's why we titled our book, California's War Against Donald Trump. Yeah. Who wins, who loses? Right now, it's the politicians winning and their, preferred providers, to use a health insurance, an acronym. They're the only ones winning. And they absolutely do not give a hoot about the people who are footing the bills, and that's the rest of us.
Well, and maybe you can tell me if this is happening or not. It seems that any time one of the Republican leaders brings something to the floor, it's never really looked at. I mean, they just kind of get rid of it. Is that what you're finding out? Or?
Oh, quite. And it's interesting. I've got an article coming out tomorrow on the Flash Report revealing the statistics and the outcomes of the 2017 legislative session in California. If we've got this 2/3, 1/3 supermajority of Democrats to Republicans, one would think that there would also be a 2/3, 1/3 in bill introduction, passage, and signed into law. But au contraire, not at all. And in fact, any good Republican bill just dies before it even hits a committee hearing.
Yeah, and I thought we were supposed to work together and be, this united front,
right.
Republicans and Democrats. I mean, isn't that what they continuously talk about? And they never do it, and we all know that they don't. And I think, when
right.
you're looking at California, it's just a microcosm of the bigger picture that's in D.C. between Republicans and Democrats, and it's a good thing to look
yes.
at, to know this is the game that's being played nationally. Look at California; they have the playbook, so...
Yeah, exactly. And, just one final thought on that. If the Republicans in Washington, D.C. don't get their act together soon, I am concerned that D.C. will turn into a California situation where a lot of them lose their seats. Yeah. Because, they are behaving, frankly, not a lot different than California's weak-kneed Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Katy, also talk to us about the Oroville Dam for those people who don't know what happened, what that was all about in California.
This was interesting. The Oroville Dam, the last winter, we had those incredible rains, and it was a blessing and a curse because California's infrastructure system, such as the Oroville Dam, suffered greatly. It has not been maintained as it should have been over the years, and the dam spillway cracked and threatened to completely blow. 200,000 people in the surrounding area were evacuated with the idea that this dam could, explode, if you will. And frankly, it would have come all the way down to Sacramento. Oroville's north of Sacramento. But it was a perfect example of the state not prioritizing infrastructure maintenance, much less building new stuff. And you know what worries me this year, Susan? I understand we're supposed to get another fabulously wet winter. The dam repairs are not complete. And you'll notice you don't hear anything in the media about it.
Well, and it was interesting when it all happened, where Governor Brown was like, "Oh gosh, I didn't know. I had no idea." I'm sorry. When you're the governor of a state, aren't you supposed to know? It's your job to know, and you are the one to be held responsible. But of course, he wasn't.
Yes.
And it was also interesting in that, I hate the federal government. I hate Donald Trump. But immediately, what did he do? Oh, here, please
he held
give
his
us
hand
money.
out.
Yeah, exactly. We need money. Please help us. And they gave it to him.
Yeah. And you know what's so interesting, too, about this is if you look back during the last legislative year even, not even talking about the years before that, Governor Brown prioritized increasing taxes, sanctuary cities, and then pushing for a sanctuary state, illegal aliens, refugees, prisoner sex changes, homelessness, transgender bills, and of course his beloved climate change, while the cracks in the 50-year-old Oroville Dam went unchecked and untreated.
Well, and I can tell you, he's not doing anything about the homeless population in San Diego. I mean, there's a statewide crisis. A health crisis because of the hepatitis deaths in San Diego. There's 18 so far from homeless people who are living on the streets. So, what's he doing?
We have it here in Sacramento. Oh, absolutely nothing. What's so irritating about all this, too, is my mayor in Sacramento is the former Senate president, Darrell Steinberg. Who is about as worthless as teats on a wild boar when it comes to actually, governing, coming up with policies for the people of the city of Sacramento. They're practically inviting more homeless people to come into Sacramento. But remember, these homeless, I say in air quotes, are not just homeless, Susan. Many of these people are those folks that were released from county jails because of the whole prison realignment boondoggle, and then Proposition 47, which decriminalized a lot of crimes, and then Proposition 57, which decriminalized drug crimes and sex crimes. These are our, quote, homeless. They're the ones infecting our cities right now, defecating in public, committing crimes to support their heroin habits or their meth habits, and they're just being called homeless.
Yeah, and Jerry Brown, he did that under Obama, the administration, when Obama was wanting to do the same thing. Let's let everybody out, having just a drug charge against you in a crime and being in jail for that. You really shouldn't have been. Let's get you out on the street. And Jerry Brown goes along with it and gets everybody out on the street. Crime rate, of course, goes up in California, but somehow we just can't figure out why the crime rate is going up in California. It's a mess.
I know. It's very frustrating, and the media only loves to do little vignettes and essays on this poor homeless woman who might legitimately be a homeless woman who, was living one paycheck away from it, and completely ignoring the homeless encampments in my neighborhood, on the borders of my own neighborhood, where there's drug dealing, sex in public, they steal people's bicycles in the neighborhood. They break into cars and homes and sheds, and they completely ignore that. That is what real homelessness looks like today, not the poor woman who it was one paycheck away and actually has services available to her.
Right, and you're not allowed also to go in and break up those encampments, the homeless encampments. You can't go in there and say, all right, get off my property. I mean, they really make it difficult for people to do that. And a lot of these, and I'm not trying to blame homeless people, but a lot of these fires sometimes get started by the people who are living in these encampments. It's absolutely dangerous for everyone, including the people who live there. And yet, Jerry Brown turns a blind eye on it.
No, he just wants to talk about climate change.
Yeah.
I'm serious. He's even blaming the wildfires in California on climate change. He really, that doddering, rambling, weird Uncle Fester of a governor of ours, blamed wildfires, which California is historically known for. We've had wildfires since before man inhabited California.
Yeah.
And this old fool, this I think the guy is, I obviously never cared for his politics, but I really think there's something very strange bordering on the evil about this guy.
Yeah, and it doesn't get better. And thank God this is his last term. He can't run again as governor in California. And I mean, this guy, talk about somebody who is a career politician. He's run for president 3 times. This is from your book, Katy. He's ran for president for 3 times. In his 4th term as governor, 2 terms as the Oakland mayor, California attorney general, and studied Buddhism in Japan. I had to throw that in because you threw that in the book.
I know.
But think, I mean, this guy has been around for so long, and talk about when he was named, he got the worst title, in America in 2010.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I was shocked when Jerry Brown resurfaced in the mid-2000s and ran for state attorney general. I think it was 2006. First he had been the Oakland mayor, and he was a disaster. Crime went up, murder, homicides, everything went up. And then he ran for attorney general. And the guy has never, ever practiced law, much like our current attorney general. And in 2010 was named the nation's worst state attorney general by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. And they said one of the most fundamental duties of a state attorney general is to defend all state laws against constitutional challenges. As attorney general, Brown has abdicated that duty by picking and choosing which laws to defend. And boy, don't we know that. And that, frankly, has been Jerry Brown to a T. He, even as governor, he picks, he willy-nilly picks and chooses which things to sign into law, whether they're constitutional or not. And he's the one that has taken this state so far left that we are now possibly looking at a Governor Gavin Newsom next.
Tell people a little bit about Gavin Newsom, and I'll tell you why I say that. People say, well, why don't you just get rid of this governor, let's get another governor. We're looking at Gavin Newsom coming in as the heir apparent as the next governor. Talk a little bit about him. Well,
Gavin Newsom, oh, good Lord, where do we start? Gavin Newsom kind of made his bones, if you will, on passing the Gay Marriage Act, if you will, in San Francisco when he was mayor of San Francisco. And again, in defiance, I will never forget the commercial that he used during that time, and I put it in many of my articles about him. Whether you'll like it or not, it's coming to you. And that is Gavin Newsom's attitude about just about everything. And here's the other interesting thing. While some of our liberal politicians may seem to really drink the Kool-Aid and buy into the leftist Marxist ideas, Gavin Newsom is a pure politician. And I think he will say or do absolutely anything, do whatever it takes to get elected. He stands for nothing and everything, which means he falls for everything. And I think he's a very dangerous character, and I'm very, very concerned about California if he gets elected.
And, who do we have in the ranks on the Republican side, to run for governor? We have no one.
Well, we have businessman John Cox out of San Diego, and he's a legitimate businessman. He's, been involved in politics, throughout his career, not dabbling, but, active. Yep. And then we have Assemblyman Travis Allen, who's a current assemblyman from Huntington Beach, California. He's got strong conservative credentials, as does John Cox. But the polling isn't too bad when you put them up against all the candidates, including Antonio Villaraigosa and Delane Easton and all the other wackadoodles on the left that are running. John Cox and Travis Allen actually poll pretty well. So you've got to keep your fingers crossed and hope that they're able to throw enough money into the races so that one of them can make the top two.
And what we need for the RNC and people like that to donate and come to California and spend their time. They look at California as, oh, well, it's a lost cause. Well, it's going to be a lost cause as long as you have that attitude and don't come here to help us, because we have Maxine Waters, for God's sakes. We have Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi. We need to get those people out of here. We need to get new people in, and we can't do it. We don't have the money in California that these people have, these long-term, stay in office until you die people, like John Cox and the one that you mentioned. Nobody knows who they are. People in California tend to go out and vote for people they've heard the name recognition. It's really popular here.
Of course.
And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. So we need money thrown in here. I say this, maybe Steve Bannon is listening. He could come in here and help us out.
I know. See, here's the thing. A lot of people kind of roll their eyes and say, God, California's a lost cause. We're just going to have to let it go down. What's so frustrating, and I run into this even in the media, Susan, the East Coast is loath to allow California to be ahead on anything. There's almost this provincial war that's been going on for decades.
Right.
Even East Coast media, they don't allow West Coast media to talk about what's happening in California. They do it themselves. They'd rather opine on California than pick up the phone and call one of us who actually do live here and report on it.
Exactly.
That's frustration number one. But same with politics. The politicians in D.C., frankly, even our own, they become more Washington and Virginia residents than they are of California anymore. I mean, Doris Matsui, our illustrious congresswoman up here in Northern California, we haven't seen her in decades. We don't even know what she looks like anymore. She was a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. She lives there. She occasionally graces a ribbon cutting here in Sacramento, and that's it. And that is what happens with California. So we desperately need some big, as you say, RNC influence and some big heavy hitters to help us fight.
What do you think about, with Maxine Waters and Omar Navarro and the chances of him unseating her in Los Angeles, where she has been, 14 terms? I don't know. And she doesn't even live in the district where she's at, where her people are. What are the chances?
I think Maxine, frankly, like the left. Let me just digress momentarily and then jump back on Maxine. I do believe, frankly, that the left is imploding, and I think they're going to take down their corrupt institutions with themselves, and that's the good news.
Right.
And we can talk about that before we finish up. Maxine Waters famously said that Donald Trump should be dragged down the hall of Congress through his impeachment. Maxine Waters exemplifies that. The left is killing itself. They're feeding on each other. Right. That woman is deliberately saying stark, raving, mad things just to keep her name in the headlines. And I think she's cooking her own goose. I think Omar Navarro has a very, very strong chance against her.
I think so, too, with the backing that he has now with Roger Stone and different people. At least he's getting his name out there. In the beginning, no one knew who he was. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Talk a little bit, too, about Jerry Brown's high-speed rail and how important that is to California.
Oh, geez. For years I've said California already has high-speed rail. It's called Southwest Airlines, right? You can get from San Diego to Sacramento in less than an hour and a half. It's kind of amazing how that works. Jerry Brown's high-speed rail boondoggle. You have to say the words together. It's been a fraud from the word go. Unfortunately, I think the fellows who put together the ballot initiative in 2009 were naively sincere that this $9 billion bond that they were passing or had the voters pass was a good thing. But what the left did with it ever since then is another story. It has been corrupt from the moment money started being spent on it. And what's interesting is there have been so many bills presented to bring accountability around to the High-Speed Rail Authority, and they're always killed. And that ought to tell you something, that this is a boondoggle. If it wasn't, you would think that our legislature and our governor would want, if he really wants this thing built, do it right. But that's not what's happening. And so that's what I really question the veracity of any of it to begin with.
And is it really ever going to be built? I mean, seriously,
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
either.
No. Here's the other thing, Susan. You've lived in California long enough. I'm a native. California is a motor state. In fact, I'm going to be driving to LA on Friday, and I will leave my house early in the morning and get to LA in time to still do something, still go out and have dinner. This is what we do in California. We think nothing about it, right?
Right.
And I can leave my house at 4 in the morning and be in San Diego in early afternoon.
Right.
This is what we do. We don't need high-speed rail, and in fact, we don't want high-speed rail. The people really don't want it. They only wanted it when they thought it was only going to cost $9 billion. Well, it's going to cost well over $100 billion, and probably closer to $200 billion, which is larger than the state budget, by the time it really happens, which is not feasible. So if you talk about California taking on high-speed rail, the bogus Delta water tunnels at supposedly $50 billion, single-payer health care, another pet project at who knows what that would cost. It's not possible. These are crazy liberal dreams that are just deflections of what really needs to happen in this state.
Now let's talk a little bit about Kevin DeLeon. Tell us about Kevin.
You mean Kevin Leon. Senate President Kevin DeLeon is, I believe he's one of the biggest frauds we've ever seen in California. And he just announced that he is going to run for U.S. Senate against Senator Dianne Feinstein, who is a fixture in the U.S. Senate. Isn't she 84 years old now?
84,
she's announced she will. Yeah, she's going to run one more time. I think the strategy behind her announcing she's going to run one more time is so she can run, win, retire, and allow the next Democrat governor of California to appoint her replacement rather than allowing the people to appoint her replacement. And this is kind of garbage that Democrats do all the time.
Yep. And absolutely.
As for Kevin DeLeon, and I hate to even call him by that because his real birth name is Kevin Leon. It's not even Leon.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Leon has bragged that half his family is in California illegally, also using illegally gained or fraudulent Social Security cards and numbers. So I'm very, very curious why Senator DeLeon is actually going to run for U.S. Senate and make his profile even higher, because I think his own profile could be the death of him.
Well, and it's amazing, too. This isn't something that somebody went and dug up on him, and maybe it's true,
No.
maybe it's not. He was on radio saying this. He said it right.
He bragged about it.
He bragged about it. And he said, these people my relatives wouldn't have made it if they hadn't have gone out and done this. And, of course, they did it. It was like, it's natural, and who cares if it was illegal? I mean, it's amazing that you have a leader, in California that is saying those things and really setting the example for everybody else, in California. It's
absolutely
crazy.
Kevin DeLeon has he's a loudmouth.
Yeah.
I have always joked that he loves the sound of his own voice and has a thesaurus word of the day, which he beats to death during the day. I have found him not to be the brightest bulb. And he says really crazy things. He accused the Trump administration of white supremacy.
Yeah.
I mean, God help me. If you're a politician and you're taking your talking points from MSNBC, you can't be that bright. There's plenty of political fodder on either side that you could legitimately pick at. And I think if you had any, intellectual sincerity. Kevin De Leon is the author of the Sanctuary State Bill, which tells you, what a radical he is. He's also the author of crazy climate change legislation, numerous bills. So he's clearly adopted the left of the left of the left type of policies, and that is how he is going to be running against Dianne Feinstein.
Well, and he's also protecting his own relatives by being, this person behind the sanctuary state. And so it's not, and that's what gets me about politicians in general, but especially these in California. They're not doing things to benefit the people. They're doing it to benefit themselves and their relatives.
Quite.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The concept of citizen representation is gone with these career politicians. Kevin De Leon is one of those. I think initially he was a college dropout but maybe finished later. But immediately went to work for labor unions, and he was a union stooge. Wow. And from there, he, ran for public office, and that's it. And unfortunately, many of our Latino lawmakers in this state, particularly on the left, came up the same way. Through the unions, they, honed their thuggish craft. I call them thugs in suits because they are. They resort to their union thug mentality and actions when threatened. It's like Senator Ricardo Lara. The day the legislature convened following the November 2016 election is supposed to be happy times in the legislature. The newly elected members bring their families, and it's, photo opportunities, and they're sworn in. Oh, no, not last December 2016. That was when Ricardo Lara and Kevin De Leon and other Latino lawmakers threatened on the Senate floor that they would fight in the streets anybody who tried to overturn their sanctuary cities and illegal immigrant policies.
When you hear things like that, you just wish that ICE would come in and Jeff Sessions would send people in and they would arrest these people. I really mean that.
Yeah, I've asked that before. I agree. These people, and I can't get an answer from any attorneys on how is it that elected politicians, especially those who are attorneys, continue to violate the state constitution and the U.S. Constitution and don't have their law licenses revoked. I mean, they swore an oath when earning the law license, and then they swore an oath to uphold the state and federal constitution when elected to public office, and they're violating it sometimes daily.
And it's a mystery. And one person I don't think was in the book, or either I didn't see it, was Ted Lieu, 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 I guess is how you pronounce it.
I know.
And that man is a troll to Donald Trump. That's what I know him by. He goes out and tweets. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Ted Lieu was a state senator, and I found him to be a real vile piece of work. Yeah. He talk about political grandstanding. That's all the guy knows how to do. I think he's the classic in it for himself kind of politician. I mean, I'm shocked that he was elected to Congress because there's no there. He served some time in the military, for which I will always,
respect
salute.
That. Yeah.
But I don't know what he did. Does not. Just because you serve time in the military doesn't mean you're a virtuous person, but I honor people who do. Right. But he has used that. I think it was a resume-building device for him, as it is for a lot of people who are resume builders.
Yes.
And he's run on that ever since. I was this or that, and I forget what branch he was in. And you're right, the guy is nothing more than a troll. And he is one of those Californians making his career on Donald Trump by trolling him on Twitter.
Yeah, every day, all day. I wonder what he gets done other than that. And he's proud of the fact that he's a troll. He doesn't need to. Yeah, he doesn't need to. He gets paid, and that's it.
See, that's what's so, yes, exactly. And that's what's so frustrating about this generation, if you will. Frankly, a lot of them are baby boomers, too. Mm-hmm. I can't wait until we start electing some of the younger people. because these guys don't do a thing. They show up and get paid, and they are good for nothing. And I'm really hoping voters get sick of it, because as I say in almost every radio interview I do, you know what, Susan? Democrats' kids go to the same crappy schools Republicans' kids do. They drive on the same crappy roads in California. They pay the same awful high taxes. Their businesses are subjected to the same horrible business-killing regulations that everybody else in the state is subjected to. And I wonder what the tipping point will be.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's talk about one of my favorites, Kamala Harris. Gosh. Oh. Tell us about her.
So, talk about no there. U.S. Senator Kamala Harris is California's former Attorney General, and she was San Francisco's former district attorney. It is shocking how, number one, she even got elected district attorney in San Francisco, because she had an abysmal legal record. Unfortunately, the phrase casting couch is in the news a lot these days,
right,
because of Harvey Weinstein's predatory behavior in Hollywood. Kamala Harris is a result of former Assembly Speaker Willie Brown's casting couch. That is how she made her name in San Francisco. And it is well documented. And as I point out in the book, we have 745 footnotes in 126 pages. It is all documented. So this isn't just me spewing some right-wing conspiracy against her. So she ran for public office in San Francisco on the back of a relationship with Willie Brown, and then was just the darling of California's left, elected Attorney General. She and Jerry Brown are responsible for weaponizing the Attorney General's office in California. It started on Jerry's watch. Kamala made it even worse. And now our current Attorney General is not even acting as an attorney. He's just, using the office as Kamala Harris did. And they're the ones that were putting out these absolutely vile ballot summaries and titles for ballot initiatives that, really sought to right a wrong or, correct something in the state that the legislature wouldn't look at. And this is what they do. I mean, they've just weaponized these political offices.
Well, and I've also heard that she paid Maxine Waters to help market her, to have Maxine go out. So before she was elected senator. So they're all connected, and they're willing to help each other. And recently, I tell people, this is the person that the Democrats right now really want to look at as possibly running for president. She wants to be president so bad. She'll do anything. She's being groomed for it.
That's just it. She's some people have called her Barack Obama in a skirt because she's, multiracial. She's attractive. She's learned how to speak in public. Frankly, you could teach a high schooler that also, a good-looking high schooler. She, I think, is another one who really isn't as bright as the left would have you believe.
Right.
She's the one who attacked CIA director nominee Mike Pompeo during Senate confirmation hearings and grilled him, remember, CIA director, on whether climate change was a leading national security threat. And she wouldn't let up. And Mike Pompeo looked at her at first like, is this a joke question? Is somebody from The Onion grilling me right now? She actually thought that was an appropriate line of questioning during a CIA head confirmation hearing. And that shows you what she's made of. Yeah,
that was the rudest questioning I've ever heard. It came close to reclaiming my time, from Maxine Waters, but it was just ridiculous. But they're Martha's Vineyard, they've taken her down there for different fundraisers and for people to take a look at her, and because they want that new blood. That's what they're kind of saying in the Democrat Party, the new blood. And I'm wondering, your thoughts on, is it time? Are they going to be getting rid of Nancy Pelosi? Is this going to be her downfall when they want new people in for 2018 and 2020?
Well, what's really interesting, Susan, is that, Nancy Pelosi is looking and behaving quite strangely these days, and it's caught all over TV. I think she's, listen, give the devil her due. She's up there in years.
Yeah.
And frankly, most people have the good sense to retire at a certain point, but not Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Brown and Kamala Harris recently showed up in Santa Rosa, I think over the weekend, for a press conference on the wildfires. Now, it was embarrassingly bad. I mean, embarrassingly bad for all three of them, not just the two near octogenarians. They had like 3-day-old data that they were spewing. Their talking points were old and stale. They looked and sounded bizarre, and even Kamala Harris did. She does not even have, if you will, the stage presence to take over a failing press conference with the aging governor and aging House Minority Leader. She doesn't have it. She doesn't have it. And I think America learned that after 8 years of Barack Obama, who probably couldn't dress himself without his teleprompters nearby to tell him what to do, I'm hoping that people remember that, because Kamala Harris is in the same league. It's, kind of Manchurian Candidate all over again.
Well, I wonder about that. People on the left, they didn't even know what Hillary Clinton had done, but they wanted to vote for her. So I don't know.
Right.
I'm not holding out much faith that they will not remember that. They won't remember that when it's time to vote. And if Kamala Harris gets in there, they'll think, oh, wow, look at this. And I'll tell you one thing on the left, and I really feel this. They really want a female president this next time in 2020. They don't care if the woman is brain dead, I would think. They just want a female in as president. And they'll do anything to get a female in there.
You're right. And yet that is in spite of the fact that identity politics are losing them elections.
Right.
I mean, when you look at how Republicans swept governor's races, the House and the Senate this last election, and in, going back to 2010, the first election after Barack Obama was elected, things don't change in one election, but they change in several. And identity politics, frankly, leave most voters with a really sour taste. We're sick of it. We're absolutely sick of it. I think a lot of people, a lot of sincere Democrats are sick of it also. They're begging, please just give us a decent candidate.
Well, I think most Democrats right now are thinking, where did my party go? I don't recognize these people.
Yeah.
Who are these people in the
They
DNC? And they're up there cussing like sailors because they think that's what the millennials want to hear. It's so out of touch.
They are so out of touch.
Yeah, I mean, they really are. Talk to us about Adam Schiff and how wonderful he is. I have to laugh every time I say these names, these people. I want to find a redeeming quality, and I haven't been able to do it, so pardon me for the laughter.
You can't.
No. Oh.
Yeah, Adam Schiff, this is very funny. The other day, Adam Schiff was on Twitter, and I confess I trolled him a little bit on Twitter because he was putting out these just innocuous, inane tweets about the corruption and the corruption in the White House and the corruption in the Congress, and yet I said corruption in the Congress, dude, you've been there since 2001 and we're only just hearing about you now. Talk about they're there. This guy, again, he's like this. There's another guy here in California named Eric Swalwell, who I'd never heard of before until Trump got elected or right before he got elected. Another one. They're just, they're out there every day holding press conferences and tweeting as if they have any relevance at all.
I know.
Adam Schiff, so he serves as the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, which I find quite ironic. And all he can do is criticize Donald Trump. That's the only there for him. And I remember remember James Clapper went on Meet the Press and, denied that there was any collusion between the Russian government and Trump.
Yes.
And Adam Schiff, then immediately, I was surprised to see Director Clapper say that, because I don't think you can make that claim categorically as he did. Oh,
right.
Come on. I mean, these guys, they've got nothing. And Adam Schiff is another one. I'm praying he gets primaried He's been in Congress too long. He's done absolutely nothing. He's collected a paycheck under false pretenses of working for his constituents, like so many of them.
Gosh, I know. His only reason for breathing, I think, is to try to prove that Donald Trump and Russia, there was some collusion there. And there's not anything there, and there never has been, and there never will be. But these people, they want to keep it going at least until 2018 and possibly 2020. So we'll have Mueller in there for forever, trying to figure out.
I hope not.
Oh, I hope not too.
What happened? Yeah, they're all asking Hillary's book title. What happened? And they're so desperate to figure out what happened that they're not even looking internally.
I know. Now, does Donald Trump have any friends from California who are in the Congress?
Yeah, he does. And yet they're a little quiet these days, which I find fascinating. Mm-hmm. Congressman Tom McClintock is very supportive. Even if he wasn't a Trump fan, he's supportive of what Trump is doing now, and that's a good thing. And that is more important. I have always said, particularly about Democrats, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. So even if Donald Trump rubbed you the wrong way during the campaign, if you're watching what he's doing now, if you're intellectually honest, you can't help but be happy. And I will say Congressman Tom McClintock is intellectually honest. I'm kind of frustrated with, as we call in our book, the GOP 14, because most of them are pretty quiet. Congressman Darrell Issa, actually was a kind of a never-Trumper for a while. Devin Nunes, I believe, was a supporter, but he kind of got trolled early on and, resigned initially. Which committee? The House Intelligence Committee.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And now he's back engaged. But there. I know Doug LaMalfa from up north is supportive. Nobody knows who Rep. Paul Cook is. Jeff Denham, I think, has not been as supportive as he should be. David Valadao, I think, was a never-Trumper.
Yeah.
These guys, there's not a lot of spine in any of them.
No, there's not. And Darrell Issa, he was big under Obama. Oh, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out. And he did nothing.
And now nothing.
And now
nothing.
Now nothing at all. It's like he's disappeared. And I've seen people that in the news where they show up at his office and kind of troll him there, and I don't even think he's there and taking any conversations with them. So, I don't know. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. Now we have just a few minutes left down to the wire here, and I want to ask you quickly, how's California liking that wall that's about to be built in San Diego?
Well, frankly, most of the legal citizens in this state like the idea. It actually polls pretty well on an honest poll. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And in fact, Susan, there is a Halloween costume out this year of the wall, sure to make liberals' minds explode. But I'm hoping that there are many Californians who choose to wear the wall for Halloween, because it's a good thing. And although I do believe the San Diego border was fairly buttoned up, if I'm correct, not bad. It's been really bad through Texas and parts of Arizona more than California. But the wall, very exciting. Can't wait to see more prototypes and see the wall go up.
Get it put in
place. One in stopping. Yeah.
Well, Katie's new book, California War Against Donald Trump, Who Wins, Who Loses, Katy Grimes. Go out there and get that book. You really need it, because I'm telling you, it is the handbook for the nation. It is in California, but let me tell you, they have written the handbook for the nation. You'll want to get it. You'll want to buy it for your friends and learn about what everybody in California is doing. And you can watch that to see, if your city and your state starts to tip to the left, you'll know it because you'll have read it first in Katie's book. So go out and get that. Katy, thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it.
Oh, Susan, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And we will have you back, because every time we bring you on, we do want to know more and more about California, because it is extremely important, as we talked about through the show. So we'll have you back again, and keep up the great work. We can get your book on Amazon. Is that correct?
Correct. It's available as a Kindle book also now, and so on Amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble also carries it, as does the Conservative Book Club.
Okay, great. All right. So, Katy, good luck to you on the book. I know it's doing well right now, and we'll talk to you again really soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Go out and get that book. You will love it. People that you know will love that book. It's very important. Don't look at it as, again, it's not just about California. This is something that everybody can use, because in your city, the same thing's going to happen. Trust me, it will. They'll try it. So until next time, thank you so much for being here. Again, we will have another guest for you next week. God bless you. Take care. We'll see you again really soon. Take care.